Welcome, delegates, to another exciting session at HODA 2021. Today this session is a very keen session that I'm interested to learn about. Is on NFTs, a bubble or a long-term bet. This session will be moderated by Mr. Ankit Wadhwa, CEO Rario. The speakers for the session are Rahul Pagidipati, CEO Zebpay, Ronald Lee, CEO BHOLDUS, and David Carlisle, Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs, Elliptic. I'd like to hand it over to Ankit to take forward the discussion, and delegates, please enjoy the conversation today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Digital goods and NFTs are the new buzzwords of 2021. We've all heard about Beeple's art selling for $69 million and Jack Dorsey's first tweet going for more than 2 million. But what are these NFTs? And why are they priced so much? Are they really worth so much? I'm your host, Ankit Wadhwa, CEO of Rario, the world's first cricket NFT platform. And to discuss what NFTs are, a bubble or a long-term bet, we have with us Rahul, Ronald, and David. They've already been introduced, but it would be great to hear directly from you about your companies and your background. After that, we will get into the session. Rahul, maybe we start with you.
Great. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here with all of you guys. Yeah, I'm the CEO of Zebpay. We're a Indian fiat on-ramp exchange, started in 2014. Been a huge believer in blockchain for almost a decade now. I read the Bitcoin white paper back in 2011, and like most people, thought it was a Ponzi scheme, but then eventually saw the true light. So really excited about to talk here about, I think, NFTs. This is a bold claim. I think NFTs are going to be bigger than Bitcoin, right? Because it really represents the whole world versus just one specific asset class.
Ronald, could we have your introduction as well?
Okay, thank you very much, Ankit, for organizing the events, and thanks a lot to the event organizers. It's my honor to be here today. My name is Ronald. I'm a serial fintech and blockchain entrepreneur. I've been in crypto space since 2014. Since I read the book about the internet revolutions of Andreas Antonopoulos, and that bring me into blockchain world. Since then, we are one of the first in 2017. We were one of the first to build out the decentralized exchanges. We built something on top of Stellar, but at that time it's quite immature technology. So we pivoted a bit to the open banking infrastructure, where we want to build out the cross-border kind of infrastructure for banks and financial institutions, money service businesses to come into one platform and offer various types of cross-border finance. And then in the early 2021 until now, as BHOLDUS were well established to build out a blockchain network by itself. So we utilize substrate-based technologies, which is a part of Polkadot-based ecosystem, to run our own independent blockchain, where we want to help Southeast Asia qualify businesses, such as online game or music, movie studios, to build something related to NFT, as well as the metaverse businesses, right? So we want to build an ecosystem where all these businesses can issue the NFT easily, can seek for funding, can go to market as quickly as possible with the kind of interoperable multi-chain and cross-chain infrastructure that we're building up. And the market is pretty good. So we are newbie in the market for BHOLDUS, but we are not new in terms of years of experience. So, a few days ago, we successfully raised almost $3 million plus. So, it's kind of an early success, right? But there's nothing, still day one for us. So we're here today trying to build a partnership, build a friendship, with everyone in the industry. So I'm here to collaborate, here to share a bit of my knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronald. David, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ankit, and thank you for everyone for joining today. I'm very excited to be here. I'm David Carlisle, the Director of Policy and Regulatory Affairs at Elliptic. Elliptic, we're a provider of blockchain analytics solutions and anti-money laundering compliance solutions for crypto asset businesses and financial institutions. So we work with a lot of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges around the world to enable them to meet regulatory requirements related to things like anti-money laundering. We also work increasingly with a growing number of major financial institutions that are entering the crypto space. And increasingly and more recently, we're working with NFT platforms and providers who are, as we'll talk about today, I think likely to come under regulatory scrutiny under time. My own background, I worked for the US Treasury in its Office of Terrorist Financing and Financial Crimes. So my own background is as a regulator. So bring that to my understanding of the crypto space as well. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Rahul says NFTs will be bigger than Bitcoins. Ronald says that they are providing all services related to NFTs. David, you're clearly invested in the space with NFT clients also coming through. I hope this doesn't become an echo chamber, but let me open up the debate and let me start our questioning. Our questions with really the topic of the session. NFTs, are they a bubble or are they a long-term bet? Maybe we start with Rahul and we can go in the same order. I'd love to get your views, and then audience, if you could leave your questions in the chat or in the Q&A section, as the conversation proceeds, I'll try to plug them in as they become relevant. Rahul, over to you.
Sure. I guess I gave my answer. It's not a bubble. This is just like Bitcoin or smart contracts. NFTs are some of the biggest new ideas of the next several decades. One thing I thought I just, I talk about, when I first heard the word, like most people, it's like, what is fungible and what is non-fungible? It's just a word that came out of nowhere. And I think a lot of people are so confused by that. So fungible just means it's interchangeable, right? So when most people think about a commodity product, something like gold or even water, I have my water glass. I do have my HODL glass. Water is fungible, or clean water is, right? So you can change water. Your water is just as good as my water as long as it's clean. And Bitcoin is fungible. Your Bitcoin is with my Bitcoin. But NFTs are amazing because I can have heavy water, right? It might be a different form of water than your water, and it's valued differently. And the reason why I believe that it will be bigger than Bitcoin is Bitcoin's amazing at what it does. I love it. It's a store of value. It's a way to do measurements, but most of the world is not a commodity. Most of the world is actually very diverse and different. And so when I want to trade something that I have for something you have, it's because they're not the same. And so over time, things like tickets, airplane tickets, concert tickets, insurance, art, it's not just art, your driver's license, your Aadhaar card, those will become NFTs. So I'm really excited about this for the next several decades.
Interesting. I mean, Ronald, I'm sure you've given this a lot of thought over the last few months and several years as well. We'd love to hear from you how you are looking at NFTs. Do you see these becoming a bubble, or do you see this as a long-term bet?
I believe NFT is totally a tremendous new types of trend in the market. They create a new supply, new demand, new market, right? So I understand, so David, he coming from the regulatory background, banking sectors, AML, KYC, CFT is a key part of it. So, we cannot go against them, right? We have to be able to work with them. But I think I see the NFT is a good trend in terms of the metaverse is something is huge, because metaverse as a service. You can look at Oculus was bought by Facebook. The end COVID-19 expedite the process of virtual world, right? The internet revolution had just started, I can see. So now it's create tremendous new types of market out there. A virtual workplace. Everyone's wearing, utilizing VR, AR to build their own products, right? So there's nothing to do with the banking segment anymore, right? So there's no conflict interest. I can see that. So the metaverse is something is really huge, and I'm sure the GameFi is hot. Even in Southeast Asia, I'm sure you guys heard of XC Infinity, one of the top 5, top 10 NFT games, right? Where we originally from Vietnam, so we based in Southeast Asia. We use Singapore as a hub, so we have the same kind of ecosystem. GameFi is something hot trend, and that's nothing to do with regulation, because the game. So all sort of technologies related to game is normally they adopt the latest technology, right? So game, I can see that's a hot trend, fast trend, and a lot of play to earn models, a lot of work to earn models coming up, right? And you can see in Philippine market where we try to focus on right now, a huge amount of population trying to get into play to earn because they stay at home a whole day because of a lockdown. What can they do to make money, to make living? They play game to earn. That's why you can see a tremendous growth in the crypto space for NFT. So I see in terms of I think the back actor need to go away. I can see that. So the regulation have to be in place, but the innovations have to be continued for more kind of virtual world, metaverse, new kind of virtual avatar, GameFi, music, movies, those digital services. I think NFTs have a fantastic opportunity moving forward in the next 10 years for sure, going to be here. And I think even you look at the global equity market size, $100 trillion, right? And right now, the coin market cap is about 2.5 trillion. So with a lot of new types of markets like metaverse and all this coming in, right? I expect, if all the legitimate businesses coming in, build the real products, keep building, doing the real business, making the real impact to society to achieve some kind of financial inclusion, I think it can be up to 10 trillion easily, right? So it's, keep doing, keep building. That's what we are doing as well. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us, and for everyone.
Ronald, I hear the numbers from you on 10 trillion, but let me also paint a little bit of the other side of the story. And this comes, a little bit from our execution in the cricket world as well. Cricket is dominated by South Asia, right, in terms of number of people who watch the sport. And the average cricket fan is so far away from the 10 trillion we talk about right now that, if I talk to them and I explain to them that this is the concept that is going to take over the world in the next 10 years, they come back, with very colorful words in Hindi, typically, to come back and say, what the hell are you doing? Right? Like, what is this business? I don't understand this at all. So on one side, we are having a conversation on $10 trillion. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. Axie Infinity possibly doing transactions worth $500 million a day on certain days. On the other side is this large majority of people who are saying, what the hell is happening here? Right. So the real question is, where does it meet? Or is it a game that a few people are playing amongst themselves, and it is essentially a show that is there for everybody else to look at? I'd love to hear your views on this. Whoever wants to go first. David, maybe you want to take the first shot since you've kind of seen this also through the crypto space, and then would love to hear Rahul and Ronald's views as well.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the case that it can be a great long-term bet. And, I totally agree with Ronald that there's a tremendous future, for the NFT space. I think it's, where the direction of digital and online ownership is going. I think, just the way, I think it's no coincidence that we saw this market take off in the midst of COVID, where our lives have just moved more and more online, and we're doing things like having online conferences. I mean, I think just as people's lives become more and more digitized, there will be a need for means of ownership and reliable verification of ownership that are online and aligned with that way of interacting. And so I think, long term, I think it's unquestionably, in my mind, going to be just part of the fabric of our lives. I think, the NFT space may be that where the crypto space was, 10 years ago, where if you talk to somebody about Bitcoin, in 2014, most people would have had no idea what Bitcoin even was. Whereas now, can argue over what constitutes mainstream adoption, but I think there are very few people who haven't heard of Bitcoin. There are more and more people interacting with it in some form or another, and I think we'll see the same thing with NFTs, over the coming decade. But I think like any new and emerging, marketplace or trend, there are going to be periods of froth and uncertainty and bubbles along the way, even as that market matures. We'll see some experiments come and go. I think some things will fade away, but I think when you just look at the number of use cases, the diversity of use cases, over time, I have no doubt that this is going to be part of more and more people's lives in one way or another. Just even the theoretical market, like you talk about some of the challenges with cricket. Nonetheless, the potential market there for people interested in cricket NFTs is over time potentially massive alone, and that's just the very, very tip of the iceberg. So, I think it's definitely going to be a major thing with staying power, over time. But we will see, fits and starts and bubbles, sort of sub bubbles within the industry kind of come and burst, and other things will take its place. And those bubbles are often the things that will capture the attention of the regulators, because they'll move in response to those massive gyrations in the market, which in the long term may not mean a lot, but have a lot of significance when it comes to kind of near term trends.
Rahul, you've had businesses and you run a business right now which focuses on emerging markets. How do you explain to your users in these markets what NFTs are and why 300 photos put together are really worth $69 million?
No, so exactly. I think a lot of people, this is a brand new idea. Some people love it and get it. Some people are just totally confused by it. My father-in-law, he's a retired oncologist, but now he paints and he loves art. And he's just floored by the fact that a digital image can be sold for tens of millions of dollars, right? Let's just be honest. NFTs are really interesting in the sense that, like, are they securities? Is it artwork? Is it a ticket? Is it a collectible like what you're doing, Ankit? Is it a cricket collectible? And it's really which is all of the above, right? It's one of those interesting things. It can do lots of different things. But what most people, this is, like I said, most people who come in here are looking to kind of collect things, or maybe this play to earn model, but they're also looking to, like, in a sense, diversify or kind of make a little money. They're not looking to burn them. No one buys let's say a painting just to burn it, right? They might enjoy the painting, and then there's some people who want to collect, let's say, a Picasso because they love the fact that they say they can own a Picasso. And so I use that term. They like to flex, like they like to flex online. I own a beautiful Ferrari or something like this. And the really cool things about the way NFTs work is that you can authenticate that you own something. And so I think one big use case is that just like a brand, if you want to authentic, Rolex watch, right now we're living in a digital world. And before COVID, we would be doing this stuff, in a physical world. But if I want to say that my Apple Watch is real, it would somehow you would be able to check whether that it's an actual real versus a fake one, right? And the other thing which is really, really important to me, and this is the biggest, probably most successful NFT is actually not the people, in my opinion, it's the CryptoPunks. I don't know if you guys have heard of CryptoPunks, but CryptoPunks has a market capitalization of about $4 to $5 billion. There's about 10,000 punks. Each punk has a at the very minimum is selling for about 100 Ether now, so about $400,000. And so these things are really interesting because they allow someone to let's say have a private avatar. And so someone like Satoshi Nakamoto, who's an amazing person who I think should win the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, he can't really authenticate who he is. But with something like a CryptoPunk, we could use an avatar, and I could actually come in and say that I'm Punk 9999, right? And then with the problem with social media right now, there's a lot of, let's say, fake spoofing. You can't verify that this person is actually that person. Right now, what happens is on the blockchain you can verify that my profile 9999's profile is this, and there's a way to check that everything I'm saying is true. And but also be anonymous about it, right? Yeah, you don't. Some people might want to make a statement anonymously, and so that's the reason why I think these things are really cool. It's a mixture of like privacy and art and collection and assets. And this Lollapalooza effect of all these things is what's going to break through. And my last suggestion is that just like Bitcoin, I think these very early NFTs will retain value. The ones that and I think there's a lot of copycats which won't be, they might have a little bit, but if you're gonna, a CryptoPunk's way too expensive, but if you're gonna kind of invest in the space, I'd say be very, very careful. There's a lot of scammers out there, and make baby steps. Don't invest more than what you're comfortable with.
So when you talk about investing, it reminds us all of investing in crypto as well. And we do talk about NFTs in the same breath as crypto. What is really the link between crypto and NFTs? Are NFTs just another form of cryptocurrencies? Or how do you explain that to people who are trying to understand why art is now a part of a conference that would typically talk about payment tokens?
Right. I can go with that. For cryptocurrency, there is asset-based token. It can be either an asset-based token, then like in any form of tokens based on Ethereum or based on Binance, Binance Smart Chains, Cardano or Solana, right? And there is a circulating supplies, right? There's a total supplies circulating in the market. So that's more for cryptocurrencies. But for the NFT, there's one piece. There's a unique asset ownership, right? That's a single piece that represents your own unique artwork, your own unique movies, your own unique pieces of IP, right? So it's different. There's no circulating supply. It's a piece of maybe a virtual desk in your own universe, in your own metaverse, for example, right? So that's pretty much a difference. So you can create, an Amazon e-commerce marketplace for metaverse, for example. So the asset-based token can be a form of native token, where whenever you transact from you buy a product, let's say you buy a virtual desk, you have to pay a fee. So that fee can be in the form of digital currency, which is the asset-based token. The token itself, the virtual deck itself, is a one piece of NFT. So that's a different, right? Yeah, I hope it's I answer some kind of layman term language.
And I think there is so the difference is stark, right? So it's you would not typically use an NFT as a payment mechanism, from what you're describing. But then how do we clarify for ourselves that this is not crypto? Because many times you hear them sort of said in the same breath, right? Are there fundamental differences as well? Because, when we talk about like Zebpay, and you are a crypto exchange, what kind of builds the rationale from expanding from what looks like currency trade to goods trade? Is there a link together, or are these very different things being done?
The link that I would say is, and remember when Bitcoin came out, there's a lot of complaints about, hey, why would I buy my cup of coffee with Bitcoin, right? And to be honest, it didn't make sense. The way they're connected is that you use a digital currency to buy a digitally native good. And this is where people don't really get it. And this is where the breakthrough's happening now. Is that now that after 10 years of building all this really cool native digital currencies, is that, Indians aren't going to be using their Bitcoin to do, in my opinion, let's say, buying physical goods, a rug in Persia, like a Persian rug over. They're going to buy a digital Persian rug, but that lives in the metaverse. And so what we mean by this is that you can't use your dollars or rupees to go buy a digitally native good. And this is what's really cool. What I've seen kind of happen is that in my opinion, one reason why Ether has a ton of value, it's hard going from a different chain, from one chain to another chain. So I think NFTs will live across multiple chains, but in many ways, like I would look at these different blockchains as being different countries. Like Bitcoin's a country, right? Ether is a country, and Binance Smart Chain and Cardano and Solana is a country, and each country has its own digitally native goods, and that's how you use them. So they're kind of connected in a sense as I can use my currency to buy some NFT within that universe, within that specific blockchain universe. And so to summarize how Zebpay does this is that Zebpay, we have millions of customers, is that if you have some BNB, what's really cool is let's say you have a lack of BNB, but hey, listen, here's what people are buying with BNB. They're buying these NFTs. Here's what people are buying with Ethereum. They're buying these, and it's kind of like, well, how can I use my digital currency in a way that makes me happy?
So it provides a use case for digital currency because they are coming from an underlying similar technology. Actually, a couple of interesting questions have come up from audience as well, and I think Ankur Ved and Prabjot Gill have similar questions. Ronald, probably led by your thoughts that you talked about NFTs as being discrete, but what is our panel's take on fractionalization of NFTs? Where you can have joint ownership. Is that the next iteration of NFTs, or are these different use cases, or what's your thought on this?
You want me to go first or someone else?
Please.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's very interesting question. Yeah, very interesting question. Yes. So I think for this NFT itself, right? It's only one piece, so it's not easy to be fractionalized by many people, right? So I think that in terms of technical aspect, I believe there should be some arrangement in terms of multi-sig, right, to make sure that everyone have that piece, because that piece cannot be split into different types of fraction. It's different from digital currency, right? So that's something maybe whoever's, maybe Rahul can give a little more elaboration. But for me, I think one piece itself is supposed to be owned by one person, or supposed to be owned by custodial services, or supposed to be owned by, that we have to set rules for multiple people to own that asset, right? So there's a multi-sig arrangement because we cannot split that. It's only one piece. Yeah.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt. There's a really cool, and this is what a lot of people are solving, because you can't buy a CryptoPunk for $400,000. There's a new service called Fractionalize.
Yeah,
I think it's the name of it. And they kind of do this. They're trying to figure out ways of owning. And the way I look at that, it's like it's one. Imagine you could own a fractional piece of a Picasso, but the other thing I look at that is it's like you're owning like a almost like a print, like a 1 of 100 print of the copy. So I do think there's actually a really cool project that just came out. I'd like to that I found really interesting. It's called Nouns DAO, and so this Nouns DAO is a really, really cool idea. They're kind of taking NFTs and DAOs and fractional ownership. They're connecting all the dots. It's kind of hard to explain here, but the core idea is that people will they're using these avatars as like their profile picture, right? And you can kind of like, in a sense, it's almost like a fraternity. And if you join a fraternity, you can wear this badge. But then do you want to be unique where you yourself own it, or do you want to be a fraternity where you can have, like, let's say, a DAO within a DAO? Right, and what that means is it's a club within a club. It's almost like a mutual fund of NFTs. So, anyways, the core point is that fractionalize is a really cool idea. It's probably a more affordable way to own some of these things.
Interesting. But David, does this also have regulatory implications? Because a lot of us look at NFT as the equivalent of art, but when you start fractionalizing this is kind of getting into other domains.
Yeah, certainly, like, fractionalization starts to raise a number of questions around things like, might people who are participating in the purchase through fractionalization ultimately, functioning like an investment syndicate where they're expecting returns on their investment, and where that happens, you can start to do things like triggering securities laws. So I think that is, fractionalization is definitely, one of a number of issues regulators will be looking at, in terms of deciding, how do some of our existing laws and frameworks potentially apply to this space. So I think it's an incredibly interesting concept, and I think as Rahul mentioned, I think it's one of the aspects of the development of the technology that will hopefully make it more accessible to more people. But it is one of those things that may start to really trigger some additional regulatory scrutiny as regulators try to understand, it is a fractionalized purchase of a particular NFT. Is it tantamount to just an investment contract that would be regulated by like other securities markets.
No, interesting, very interesting. Actually, another big question that comes up is, when you talk about the 5 billion valuation associated with some 10,000 odd NFTs which have been trading around, are these prices really real, or are they manufactured? And can I realistically sell my doodles or my 8-bit graphic for like $1 million? Because that's the question that's, literally coming up from across the board. Would love to hear your take on this. Real or manufactured? Bubble or not?
Right. Interesting.
It's
Yeah.
both.
I think this is not a financial advisor, but I believe, this is not a financial advice, but I believe, invest with your own spare money, don't invest with the your entire assets, because this is a very high risk investment, right? If you are a good trader, welcome to the game. Of course, you can be a good trader. You understand the game. You understand the chart. Then you can buy and sell within the days or within the minutes, right? That's a different game. But if you invest in the long term, then it's tied down to the fundamental of the business, right? If you're a long-term holder, if you like the project and you think that they're going to be here in the next 5 years, then you believe in them, you believe in their team, you believe in their roadmap, then I think you become a long-term holder. Then I think it's safe, right? But if you are short-term holders, I think it's a high risk, because there's a lot of market movement right now. The market is uptrend. Everyone is feeling so good. Whatever you invest, you can make money, right? But I think in the short term, if the market is uptrend, everyone is happy, definitely. But I think there's a lot of market movement right now, like market making services and facilitating the funds here and there. So beware, right? Beware. And if you're here for long term, I believe that we need to dive deep into their business. Understand their team, understand their core value, right? It's a normal kind of startup. Then you can be a long term holder. For a short term holder, it's just another kind of gambling, right? So if you gamble, then it's a different story. That's why I think invest in your own risk. And of course, the market is kind of, there's a lot of I think there's a lot of real demand and also unreal demand. It depends on how you look at it, but depends on whether you invest in the long term or invest in the short term. If you invest in the short term, you have to act quick. But if you invest in the long term, then it's a different story. So it depends on the different investor perspective. Yeah.
So treat it as a high risk investment asset. Be judicious. Don't sink in the family silver into this, is what I'm hearing. But are these prices real? Rahul, you were smiling. Maybe you have a take on this.
No, yeah. I would say great points, Ronald. You should put a fraction of your net worth into crypto, and you should put a fraction of your crypto net worth into NFTs. Right? I look at it like that. They're NFTs in many ways are some of the most highest risk, forms of crypto, because I personally do believe you asked, is it real or not? It's both. Like some people are manipulating prices, right? And some of it's real, right? And like let's just say, let's just use someone who's very aggressive. Say they have 10% of their net worth in crypto, right? Which I think is pretty aggressive to people. Then I think you should probably put 10% of that into NFTs, so 1%. And when you're doing it, just exactly like you're saying, is that don't this is go you're trying to buy things you love. For example, let's start you're doing cricket, right? So how would you get a collectible there, right? And so if you gotta be careful about it, I don't know, Ankit, I'll ask you, who are the most famous cricket stars on the world? If that person starts minting, his name, then the value of his NFTs go down, right? So you kind of have to trust that someone's going to keep a limited supply. Rolex is not going to sell millions of watches, right? Because they realize that hurts their brand. And so there's all these nuances of like, what should I do? I would say this is some people say they don't offer. I'm a lawyer and I'm worried about people. My financial advice is this: buy Bitcoin and Ether, the biggest, right? And then those are very liquid and safe. And if you're going beyond that, like anything you're buying with those currencies, you should buy it because you love it, right? It's because you love the brand, right?
So do your own due diligence. There are projects that would make sense.
Other than Bitcoin and Ether, pretty much most other things can be manipulated, right? Those two, Bitcoin and Ether, are so massive; it's very hard to manipulate those prices. Right? So
makes sense.
If you're worried about manipulation,
any compliance, regulatory constraints on if something is manipulated on price, or it's like the Wild Wild West, you can do whatever you want?
Yeah, well,
David's looking at this. Yeah, go ahead, David.
I'm sorry. No,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's definitely one of the issues regulators will be looking at. I mean, I think in any market that's moving like the NFT market, is at the moment, it's going to attract the attention of regulators. When you get NFT selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars on a regular basis, regulators just going to want to know what's going on. Is there fraud occurring? Is money laundering happening?
Yeah.
Are these markets being manipulated? Are consumers being provided with fair and accurate information? And I think the main focus of regulators, at least initially and kind of here in the near term, is going to be really about identifying any outright fraud or criminality in the NFT markets. So you're really looking for egregious cases of scams or money laundering and instances of people being quite obviously victimized. We are starting to see some of those scams emerge. I think Rahul referenced the prevalence of scammers in the space. Things where fraudsters are say posting an ad for a supposed NFT with all sorts of false information about it. May take money from victims and then disappear, and the victims are left with a more or less worthless NFT. We actually saw an example of this just last week that involved the artist Banksy, the famous sort of street artist in the UK. Last week, someone managed to hack into Banksy's website, post a link to an NFT sale on OpenSea, big NFT marketplace. The OpenSea link was to an NFT that was supposedly created by Banksy, and was almost immediately purchased for about $330,000. But it turned out it was not by Banksy at all. It was just a scam, and the buyer had fallen for it. And in that particular case, the fraudster returned the money to the buyer, probably owing to the amount of public attention the case got. But I think, needless to say, fraud can very easily occur in this space where, prices are booming. It makes scams very easy to pull off. And so, it's certainly something I think that anyone launching a platform or a business operating in this space really needs to think about is, even though regulators are still clarifying their position, clarifying how certain existing laws are going to apply to this space. And I think we'll see them provide more and more clarity on that over time. As I mentioned at the top, we're already starting to work with some NFT platforms that are looking to front run some of that regulation, get the compliance frameworks in place so that their platforms are not being exploited by fraudsters or not being manipulated. Because even before the regulation, before some of that clarity coming, a business can suffer really significant reputational damage if its platform is being used for things like fraud. So I do think it's something we're already seeing. A lot of actors in the space start to take seriously, is this compliance need, and I think it's something we're only going to see become more and more pressing over time, and as regulators, look more and more closely at this space.
No, great. Probably that fake Bansky NFT would be worth even more after this entire story.
The scam, falling for a scam may have turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Who knows?
But I mean, there's an interesting question, and actually by Prabjot, and I'm actually going to add on to that. And so we talked about tickets, we've talked about art, we've talked about play to earn, we've talked about sports to an extent. I mean, I hope I did. But outside, like, where do you really see the NFT market maturing first? I mean, what do you think are going to be some of the biggest use cases? These are very diverse fields. Which way do you see the wind blowing?
Maybe I'll take a quick stab at this first. The first one, without doubt, is a profile picture, a PFP, or an avatar, right? And so people are buying these things, and I think they're buying because they like the way it looks, but they're also buying it in a sense to validate that that they understand what the uniqueness of NFTs are. And there's a lot of very famous people, like really, really famous influencers, who have been buying. So I'll give you a perfect example. Like in the United States, Steph Curry, an NBA basketball player, bought a Bored Ape Yacht Club. Steve Aoki, who's a famous DJ, he owns a CryptoPunk. Musicians, artists, sports people, especially let's say trendsetters, they're buying these things, doing. And then Even let's say crypto influencers. I'll give you things example. The founder of Uniswap owns Swan, the founder of Compound, and I think those are these avatars are really big. And then I see that there's a question about what does that mean in the metaverse? People are buying these things. Another company is a company called Yat. Zebpay is actually going to partner with them. Yat's a really cool idea. They make emoji usernames. It's actually a pretty phenomenal concept. Emojis are used by billions of people around the world, and they're basically making emoji NFTs. And so when you have I'm sure you guys have all used emojis, from hearts to the namaste to I see a thumbs up going up right now, right? And these things, in the metaverse, people will want to, let's say, that can become their avatar. And so some really famous ones are, there's one that it's a rocket ship moon, and kind of the name is To the Moon. That's almost $250,000, right? And so these avatars are in my opinion, the biggest use case. People are going to tie this meaning, is emoji username or a CryptoPunk, and they're going to almost become like their mask.
Oh, very. And what do you like 10 years from now, if you had to pick one NFT execution that would rule the world, what would it be?
In my opinion, I think you're a little more. It's gaming, but it's not. Let's use the cricket one. It's not simply the physical world going into the digital world. It's a digital world kind of representing the physical world. So the thing that people love doing the most, if you tell me honestly, is look at the large market cap things. It's things like Netflix. Netflix has a market capitalization of almost $500 million. It's like watching movies, right? And then gaming. I live here in Durham. There's a massive company here called Epic Games, which you guys probably heard of. They make Fortnite, right?
Yeah.
Fortnite, once it connects into the crypto world, those NFTs and having a skin or an avatar and living in this metaverse, we'll be able to. I think 10 years from now, we'll be doing this conference, and I won't be able to see your physical face. You guys will pick something you love, whether it's tennis or art or whatever, and whether it's a banana or for example, I have a Yat, and my Yat, which that emoji username is an apple. It's 3 apples, right? You'll be able to see me as however I want to be represented.
So interesting. I mean, the NFTs which connect the digital and physical world. Ronald, what's your take on this? You're seeing a lot of NFT companies possibly tying up.
Yes, I extremely and totally and absolutely agree with Rahul about this game. GameFi is going to be the biggest GameFi with Metaverse. It's going to be the biggest trend in the next 10 years, right? I see right now, even Axie Infinity is still 2D, right? 2D kind of environment. There can be 3D games moving forward with more kind of AR and VR technology coming up, right? So a lot of hardware manufacturers are trying to team up with the GameFi players in the market as well. So even ourselves, I mean, in our business, we also planning to open up kind of like a GameFi incubator in Singapore, right, where we partner up with a few folks in Singapore to help those GameFi startups, GameFi developers, Metaverse developers to come in, working alongside with universities. So that's the direction. And I see a lot of, because of the trend, maybe in the Southeast Asia, where I'm originally from, I see a lot of engineers, a lot of good trends right now. They're moving into GameFi, and they try to create a game where there is a strong economics, there's strong tokenomics of that game itself, right? How are they going to build sustainable retentions within that game? How are they to create the hunger for people to buy certain NFT in that particular game, for example? So like what Rahul mentioned, it's going to be a virtual workplace everywhere, right? We can see each other's, in real time, right? We can see like a 3D, 4D kinds of concept. So that's kind of new kind of, world, right? So that's
digital and physical linkage and gaming. We have 2 more minutes. I'd love to take also David's view. What do you think is going to be the big NFT play in 10 years from now?
Yeah, well, I think these guys covered the future of gaming pretty well. I mean, I think in addition, I do think the fusion of this space with just the sporting world is going to continue to be massive and will really grow. I think just the just sort of the affinity for sports fans, for just collectibles in general. The fact that the sporting world is just moving online in terms of fantasy sports and everything that goes with it, e-gaming and all of that. I think it's just the continued fusion of major sporting events and industries with this space will be around with us, no question, in a decade, and be much bigger than it is now.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much. I know we are at time. There are some very interesting questions in the chat, but we unfortunately, I don't think have the time to take those right now. And Soham has also showed up here. That's sort of like a signal to say if you have 5 minutes left. But it's over to you, Soham, on this session.
Thank you, Ankit. Thank you, Ronald. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you, David, for an interesting and an exciting discussion on NFTs. I think our delegates have really enjoyed what the future of NFTs will be. I'd like to close this session by thanking our partners, our title partner Zebpay and CoinDCX, powered by partner CoinSwitch Kuber, brought to you by partner BitBins, platinum partner Facebook, gold partner Geotis, bronze partner Huobi Global. Delegates, please look forward to another session happening at Hotel 2021. And thank you, speakers, for an exciting discussion today. Thank you.
Thanks folks. Harold. Hope to keep in touch. Rahul, Ankit, and David. And so on. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.